I have edited videos professionally for 7 years now, and I have done all that work entirely on Windows. However, I recently made the switch to the M5 MacBook Pro, and it has been a pretty big change to my entire process. But before I get into just how much it's changed my process, let's get into why I switched. I initially started editing on a PC I built in 2018. I then built another PC in 2020. So it's safe to say I was a pretty big PC enthusiast. Windows was the engine that helped me get all of my work done. I don't want to understate just how much of a fan of Windows I was. I never would have thought of switching to Mac even a couple months ago. In 2023, I picked up a pretty powerful Lenovo laptop. I think it was the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i or something like that. Windows laptops have crazy names, and I can never remember them. I actually used that for my professional work for 2 years, and it only took those 2 years for it to start slowing down. I would have gone back to the PC I built a couple years earlier, but it was also starting to show its age, and it was also really struggling to edit videos. I was really tired of troubleshooting issues with Windows, the ads, the bloatware, them selling my data to God knows who, and I just wanted a machine that did the work I needed it to do. So I ended up picking up the M5 MacBook Pro nearly a month ago. Let's go over the specs. So this is the 16-inch version with 46 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. So now that you know the exact model I have, let's get into just how much it changed my creative work. Being that this computer is my main editing rig, the first thing I did was download DaVinci Resolve and every other post-production app I needed. The primary applications I use are DaVinci, After Effects, and Photoshop. And as I mentioned in a past video, I am trying desperately to stop using Adobe, but for now, that is primarily what I use. With all the apps I needed downloaded and ready to start getting work done, I started to get work done. And it did not take very long for me to feel just how fast this MacBook Pro is. I was editing 6K footage with absolutely no hiccups, and it absolutely destroys 4K editing, which is primarily what I edit in anyway. When I was playing back on my timeline, it didn't drop any frames until I had it fully color graded with a power grade, and I had Fusion effects on top of that as well. And with it being a laptop, I fully expected for it to start getting pretty loud and for the fans to kick up whenever I started editing. I've only ever heard the fans on this thing twice. My old Lenovo laptop sounded like a jet engine when I was using it, and I actually got used to it over time, but when you use something that is completely quiet and you go back to an old Windows laptop like that, it is insane how much of a difference it makes. And I know that the Lenovo laptop gets hotter because it has a dedicated GPU, whereas the Mac doesn't, but still how powerful the chip is and how energy efficient it is, it just doesn't need that fan as much, and it doesn't need to be cooled as much. And it's extremely impressive just how quiet this thing is. Dedicated GPU or not, I was getting much better performance on this Mac, and it seemed like it wasn't even breaking a sweat. I spend almost all of my time in DaVinci Resolve, and even on PC, it really doesn't crash hardly ever. It's extremely stable, especially compared to other editing software. But towards the end of my Lenovo laptop's lifetime, it was starting to really slow down. It did have a couple crashes on Windows, but on this Mac, it hasn't had any crashes at all, no glitches, no hiccups at all. It's just been extremely smooth. I guess this is what happens whenever your software isn't 90% bloatware, and it's designed to do what the user actually wants to do. Something I never really did with my old laptop was take it out of the office. I constantly had it plugged up to an external monitor and plugged up to power as well. And I wanted to really try to do that more with this MacBook, and considering I had to carry around a huge brick of a power supply with the old laptop, I really didn't find it to be like the most portable option. I mean, I can move around, but having to have it constantly plugged in somewhere was a little bit annoying. And also, the old laptop didn't utilize 100% of its power unless you had it plugged in. But that is not the case with Macs. I expected a better portable experience with the MacBook where I could take it around and do work on it wherever I wanted. But the experience I actually had blew me away. I've taken it into coffee shops and edited for hours, and it would only go down 15%, 20% battery. That is simply unheard of on a Windows machine, or at least I personally have not seen a Windows laptop be able to do that. So I would often want to go out, edit somewhere, get work done, not in a dark office, but it really wasn't as easy of an option or as convenient as it is now with my MacBook. And it's just nice to go out, find a coffee shop with a nice vibe, and get work done without having to constantly deal with a massive power supply being plugged in. I really like that aspect of this computer. Editing at 4K on just battery without your computer being plugged in and it not going down extremely fast was something I did not think was even possible. And I was pleasantly surprised by just how quick this thing can export a video over 10 minutes at 4K. Like, it is so much faster than my old computer. The only issue I had with DaVinci was getting it windowed properly on my screen, because Mac's windows work a little bit differently. They don't quite snap the same as a Windows computer does. And I would open it up and it would be like a small window instead of full screen or mostly full screen. And navigating from files back into the software was a little bit difficult because it would open into full screen and I couldn't navigate through the software as easily. One thing I've been harping on in a very good way with the Mac is the Finder. File Explorer on Windows is a complete joke. Something that's super important in video editing is file management, dragging files from folders onto a timeline, and File Explorer was such a slow piece of junk. Finder is almost instantaneous. Whenever you search up a file that you really need for your project, it comes up almost immediately. And this is so important in video editing. Sometimes File Explorer wouldn't even show drives I had plugged into my PC, and I've yet to have that problem with Mac. File management is like 70% of my job as a video editor. Probably not, but it's a big chunk of what I do. And I feel like every single update or every few updates, it felt worse and worse to use the File Explorer on Windows. Whenever I need to open a file or an app, I just pull up the Spotlight search and I can search anything on my computer and it comes up immediately. It also has a nice smooth animation when it comes up, which I really like. The rest of macOS has homogenized UI and animations, and it's really just a nice touch. It has no effect on workflow, but it looks nice, so that might increase productivity. It's kind of like having a gaming chair with RGB. You get more FPS. Something that is impossible to not notice when you use a MacBook because you stare at it all the time is the screen. This is by far the best laptop screen I have ever used. Even though so many people have said this is the most accurate screen you can get on a laptop, you can't really use it for reference when color grading. But this machine paired with a color accurate monitor is a very powerful post-production tool. And if you plan on using it to do professional grading and editing work, I really couldn't see you needing anything else. In my first few weeks of using the M5 MacBook Pro, other than some teething issues, getting used to the OS, getting used to like navigating around stuff, I have had practically zero issues with it. It is compatible with every app I need, and it has been extremely intuitive and simple to use. Everything has simply worked for me when I needed it to, and that is really all I needed and wanted out of this computer. I haven't had to do any troubleshooting with anything I've downloaded. It is all just booted up and worked. I actually had it delivered to me on a Sunday, and I was doing work the next day. This thing comes out of the box ready to use. I'm not sure that you could do that with a PC that has Windows 11 on it. I think it would take a lot longer time to get set up and get started working. So you might be wondering just how much I spent on this. I spent 3,000 golden clams on this computer.
Money!
That amount of money is insane to spend on anything, but a lot of it went to the RAM and storage additions that I had on the computer. Thank you, data centers, for that. It was painful to shell out this much cash to Apple, but honestly, I have had pretty much only a positive experience with it. I'm using this computer as my workhorse machine, and it has done anything and everything I have thrown at it so far. So I guess it was worth the $3,000 that I spent on it. If you are a creative or someone who works in post-production or production in general, I think you should look into a MacBook Pro if you are on Windows. But I could still be in the honeymoon phase and I could hate it in a month. We don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's been great. It's been great and awesome.